Hi, I'm Dr. Joshua McDowell, Fayetteville Accident Injury Center in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We're a chiropractic office located on Bragg Blvd, and we're a member of Premier Chiropractic Group covering 5 locations in the Triangle area of North Carolina. Wanted to talk to you a little bit today about something called RICE. It's an acronym that stands for Rest, Ice, Compression, and Elevation. This is something you typically want to use after a recent injury. If you've had an injury and so forth, say a twisted ankle, sprained wrist, elbow, knee issues, things along those lines, if it's an injury in one of your extremities or your arms or legs, RICE is a good thing to use and so forth directly after the accident, especially for the first 72 hours to help decrease inflammation and swelling, help you to feel better in the long run. A couple of important things with that. Rest is pretty self-explanatory. Don't want to push the injured tissue too much. Give it some time to recuperate. Should help you to feel a lot better pretty quickly. Icing the area is important. Some people take an ice pack and use it for way too long. You only want to use it for 10 to 15 minutes until the area really goes numb. I typically recommend to a patient to use it for another minute after that, and then you're good. Take it off, put it back in the freezer. Don't use it again until the tissue is heated up really well. My recommendation would be after 45 minutes to an hour at a minimum. Compress the area, compress it lightly. Using an ice bandage is typically very good. You don't want to wrap it too tight. You shouldn't go numb beyond the area where the wrap is used. It should just be lightly wrapped to actually press on the area to help and bring everything back to the chest and so forth through your venous system or through your blood vessels. The last part of this is elevation. So if it is an issue in your leg or your arm, you want to try and elevate that limb above the level of your heart. Allow gravity to help press the swelling back towards the center of your body and back into your general circulation. Again, it's called RICE, and it stands for Rest, Ice, Compression, and Elevation. Dr. Joshua McDowell with Fayetteville Accident Injury Center. Check out our website at www.fayettevilleaccident.com. or give us a call here at the office if you have any questions. My number is 910-484-2001. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great day.